Committed to respond to the call of a wounded war, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world not of wealth, but of well-being for all.
Good morning. I'm Nikia Popow.
I'm Evelyn Jacob.
And I'm Kathryn Gargurevich. The three of us are the lay worship leaders for this service, which we developed as members of River Road's Earth Ministry. Welcome to this time to reflect and to plan for action on our climate emergency, one of the global crises facing us today. We are in the midst of the COVID global pandemic, but the climate emergency, another global crisis, existed before COVID and will continue after it. At the same time, our responses to climate change must be intertwined with our responses to systemic injustices and racism, because it is the Black and the brown communities that have and continue to suffer disproportionately from extreme weather events and pollution. If this is your first or your 500th time here at River Road, know that you are welcome.
The scientific consensus about our climate emergency is clear. 97% of actively publishing climate scientists agree that the Earth's climate is warming and that this trend over the past century is due to human activities. However, the scientific data is not our focus this morning.
Our focus is a moral one. As Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, we are called to understand that climate change is a moral challenge, not simply an economic or technological problem. We are called to honor our duties of justice, to prevent the enormities of climate change, because the price of the lifestyles of the privileged is paid by millions of poor people. I urgently call on ordinary people in rich countries to act as global citizens, not as isolated consumers. Our experience in South Africa confirms that if we act on the side of justice, we have the power to turn tides. End quote.
We gather at a time of new beginnings. We gather at a time of stories told too many times, told over and over again as the planet and people's lives hang in the balance. We gather as we learn and relearn how to be in community in unprecedented times, building from the beginning as many times as it takes to make a space for all that is our lives. Here at River Road, we're approaching the start of a brand new congregational year, with programming both this Sunday and next Sunday to launch us into a new phase of our shared ministry in this season of change. Today at 2:30, I hope you'll join me and our COVID-19 advisory team for an hour-long information session on our adaptations to COVID and our program plans for the coming year. 200 of you filled out our survey and submitted questions. You asked, so we'll answer. We have plenty to work with as we make our way forward together. We'll also join in community today from 3:30 to 6:30 on the grounds of our own beloved congregation. There is a river flowing at River Road. During those 3 hours, you can come either in your car or on foot to participate in our annual water communion ritual. You can pick up a take-home pandemic spiritual survival kit for you and your family. You can even receive a special blessing from our ministers and staff for this back-to-school time or any transition you might face in your life. You can buy your very own River Road logo featured water bottle. You can do all this all in one place, together in a safe and socially distant way. Please park off-site if you are participating on foot. Approach the entrance slowly if you are participating in your car. And as always, maintain social distancing and masking because each and every one of us is important. We hope to see you there. Don't come all at once. Know that the time is as generous as our spirits to make room for us all. You'll also be receiving information this week about upcoming small group ministry offerings, lots of connections to youth and family ministry, and next Sunday's live Zoom worship featuring a virtual children's choir debut and all the love you poured into those waters we gathered together the Sunday before. The joys and sorrows of our lives weave us together into a community that is needed now, perhaps more than ever. In the midst of this, we celebrate the beautiful things. This week, including a brand new baby granddaughter to our own Sherry Blanchette, little Olivia June made her debut on Monday at 7 pounds, 2 ounces, and 20 inches long. And we hold this world, which baby Olivia has entered in our hearts. We hold that world even as it breaks those hearts of ours wide open. This week, we mourn the shootings of Jacob Blake and Trayford Pellerin, one in Kenosha, Wisconsin, one in Lafayette, Louisiana, both young Black men, both targeted by police in the age-old story we tell again and again and again. We grieve also that the protesters who gather to remember Mr. Pellerin in Louisiana do so as storms gather in the place they call home. Storms whose impact, like Katrina, will almost certainly disproportionately impact the lives and livelihoods of people of color. We say their names as Jacob Blake fights for his life, which is forever changed by the 7 bullets that were fired at his back. We say their names with awareness of the still unfolding story of what happened on the nights after those first bullets flew. In the darkness of the streets of that city, 3 more people were shot, 2 fatally in what appears to be a racially motivated act on the part of a heavily armed and self-appointed militia member whose presence in the midst of even the most peaceful protesters was deemed acceptable by authorities on the scene until the bullets started flying. Which causes me to ask, what is and what is not acceptable? What is and is not American? What is and is not tolerable for our hearts, for our people, and for the world? And so today we pray that the storms will save us from their harshest winds, that the systems may save themselves with our effort, that the stories we tell of this time in history will include our agency, our faithfulness, in addition to the list of names endlessly read of the people who suffer in the hands of all this brokenness. As our service proceeds, I invite you to put your joys or sorrows into this space we share. The chat feature will run alongside our screen, holding a space, creating a sanctuary for every single thing that makes and remakes and breaks your heart today. Finally, this morning, in a little while, we'll move on to the offertory section of our service. After our lay leaders have the opportunity to share more deeply about their commitment to living richly in this time of climate crisis, you'll be invited by Evelyn into the time to share your gifts. And when we do so, know that those gifts this morning will be entirely shared with those outside our doors and in our hearts who mean the most to us. Since February 2017, River Road has supported and befriended the Wafas, an Afghan family resettled in the US with green cards. We started this friendship, this beneficial relationship to us all after one among that precious family had become a Taliban target for his faithful service both to his country and to ours. The Wafas have 3 children, the last born right here in 2018. Their 2 older boys begin school classes on August 31st, and their father has been laid off from his hotel job during the course of this pandemic. It is a difficult time. They are us. We are them. And with no rent reduction plans on the horizon, our partnership in the well-being of this precious family is indeed as important as ever. Our full collection today will be lifted up as a love offering to the Wafa family as they make their way forward together, with all of us learning and growing alongside them. Please give generously during our time of offering. Know that you could also log on to our website to make your donation when and how you can. Every dime goes out the door today. Every bit matters. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
May I ever use my hands for lifting up. May I ever use my voice for speaking truth. May I consecrate each day and live with joy and wonder. May I sow in peace as all the wild things do. I will ever use my voice for lifting up. This voice was made for peace. I will ever use my eyes for seeking truth. These eyes were made for truth. I will consecrate each day and live with joy and wonder. I will sow in peace as all the wild things do. There is peace on I will reap in peace as all the wild things do. Wild and precious, we are wild and precious. Life is wild and precious.
Our first reading is from Thich Nhat Hanh's Love Letter to the Earth. Dear Mother Earth, I bow my head before you as I look deeply and recognize that you are present in me and that I'm a part of you. I was born from you and you are always present, offering me everything I need for my nourishment and growth. My mother, my father, and all my ancestors are also your children. We breathe your fresh air. We drink your clear water. We eat your nourishing food. You are the mother of all beings. I call you by the human name Mother, and yet I know your mothering nature is more vast and ancient than humankind. We are just one young species of your many children. All the millions of other species who live or have lived on Earth are also your children. 4 members of our congregation will now share some of what they love and celebrate about our shared planet.
I'm Robin Galbraith. When I was a teen, my dad worked for the US Army in Stuttgart, Germany, so we had some wonderful vacations in the Alps. In the summers, we hiked under the icy white peak of the Zugspitze. One winter break, we skied powdery slopes in a tiny Swiss village. And the following year, we drove through snowy Austria and played a game to see who could spot the most lighted Christmas trees. The best thing about all those adventures was my certitude that they'd be around for my kids and grandkids. I had a tremendous amount of hope for the future when I was a kid. And this is what I think is most worth saving, for this generation to be able to regain their hope for the future.
One thing definitely worth saving is the atmosphere. Without it, we can't breathe. Years from now, I want to be able to look up at the night sky and still see all the star constellations I see now. I also love snow. Once, when there was a snow day, my friends and I met up and went to a local ski resort. Between all of us falling on top of each other in the middle of a double black diamond and teaching my friends how to ski for the first time, it was a memorable experience.
Hi, my name is Prem Grover. I love traveling through the desert. The landscape is so alien and so surreal that on one visit alone I can barely break through the surface of its beauty. In the American Southwest, the saguaro cacti, who have spent many years evolving to survive, stand proud in the desert, seemingly unaware that no rain will come for weeks.
Hello, I'm Martin Dieu. When we were originally planning this service last winter, before COVID-19, I wrote about springtime during my childhood. Though we're deep into this summer of COVID, I'd like to try to transport you back to those spring images growing up on a farm. Each spring, when I was growing up on a farm in Central California, we would wait with enormous expectation for our orchard's spring blossoms. It was like a dance, following a steady and unshakable pattern. Apricots, the almond trees, then the peach and nectarines, then the plums and the cherries. The blooms were our community's pastel-colored, slow-motion fireworks display. Underlying it all was a sense of order, a sense that everything was right in the world. Here in the Washington, D.C. area, my family and I love strolling through the cherry blossoms in the spring. Several years ago, we planted our own cherry tree. And now, each spring, we picnic under our tree. I marvel at the beauty of these most delicate blossoms and find peace in this beautiful dance of rain, sunlight, and soil.
I invite you to pause a moment to identify and hold in your heart one aspect of the planet that brings you great joy. What do you care about too much to lose? What is worth changing for?
When I rise, I will rise like a bird, joyfully. And when I fall, I will fall like a leaf, gracefully. When I rise, I will rise like a bird that soars joyfully. And when I fall, I will fall like a leaf, gracefully.
Although there is much to love and cherish on our earth, we are living in a period of mass extinction, catastrophic climate changes, and extensive human suffering. Loss is all around us. We need to acknowledge and grieve for the losses that have already taken place and that will continue unless we act. As I read the text on your screen, which is adapted from the UN Sabbath program, I invite you to say with me the refrain, "We have forgotten who we are." We have forgotten who we are. We have become estranged from the earth. We have sought only our own security. We have exploited the earth simply for our own ends. We have forgotten who we are. Now the land is barren, and the waters are poisoned, and the air is polluted. We have forgotten who we are. Now the forests are dying, and the creatures are disappearing, and humans are despairing. We have forgotten who we are. We ask forgiveness. We ask for the gift of remembering. We ask for the strength to change. We have forgotten who we are. Prem, Robin, Sophie, and Martin will now share some of the losses that touched them deeply.
I miss my snow days. I miss waking up in the morning and watching my neighborhood through a blanket of white. I miss not having to do the seemingly menial task that middle school brought. I miss sledding in the park and snowboarding on boards that would just have us turn right into the trees. I miss the big snows where I could tunnel through my yard just to have my old golden retriever Mowgli run through and destroy them all. Being a kid in this climate zone comes with a watchful eye at the snow forecast, which I fear will be lost.
I used to love everything about air travel. The whole hands up in the air pose you do for TSA scanners, the tiny bathrooms, the view of Mount Hood as you fly into Portland, Oregon, that jerky pushback you feel when the wheels touch the ground at landing. I loved all of that. Until I realized that addressing climate change means asking oil companies to leave most of their money in the ground. How can I ask them to do that if I won't give up using tons of fossil fuels for air travel? So last summer, I took a vow to stop flying. Now, instead of taking a 1-hour flight to see my oldest in Vermont, I take a beautiful 12-hour train ride. Instead of flying to Portland, Oregon to see my youngest, we use video chat. And I'm planning a week-long bus and train adventure to see her in Oregon sometime after the pandemic. I mourn the loss of getting to go back to Europe or ever seeing Asia, Africa, or Australia again. But the hope that my vow gives me that future generations will be able to know Antarctica with glaciers makes up for my loss.
When I was 3, one of my favorite books was I Know a Rhino. Since reading that book, I wanted to see a rhino out in the wild. Now my chances aren't looking that great. I will probably never get to see a northern white rhino because there's only 2 left. And in 10 years, there probably won't be any rhinos, according to the BBC. I also mourn that scientists say the Amazon rainforest might eventually reach a tipping point, which means that so much of the ecosystem has been destroyed that the transition from a rainforest into a savanna is irreversible. The rainforest is a breathtaking ecosystem that houses an incredible diversity of wildlife. My grandma traveled there with my mom when she was little. Both my parents traveled there before they got married. We think ourselves to be so intelligent, but we are destroying ourselves through comfort and luxury and taking the whole world with us. Most of us here today experience climate change only indirectly. And it's all too easy to forget about it or push it away, but it is real, and your children will pay for it in their lifetimes.
For several years, I've been working with Alaska Native villages and with indigenous groups across the Arctic to bridge the divide between science and indigenous knowledge. For me, environmental justice means working with, listening to, and recognizing the environmental and health interests of our most vulnerable communities. After many years of building trust and collaboration between scientists and tribal elders, it appears that we are witnessing the destruction of the native cultures in the Arctic. Arctic sea ice coverage, snowfall, and permafrost have changed dramatically in the past 10 years. Native food sources are endangered by the lack of ice cover. Several Alaskan native villages are literally falling into the Arctic Ocean because of increased erosion from larger and larger storms. At the same time, the melting permafrost is making land-based hunts and transportation very difficult. Traditional knowledge is rooted in place, in thousands of years of observation, and in the passing of knowledge orally. Now, just as Native communities are gaining a voice and influencing science, climate change is undermining the basis of this knowledge. Like the quickly melting glaciers and suddenly unreliable permafrost, I fear this culture is disappearing before our very eyes.
I invite you to take a moment to consider and sit with a climate-related loss that touches you deeply. We give so much to the life of our congregation. Our time, talent, treasure, and dedication to the higher purposes that draw us together. And so this morning, we invite you to give as you are willing and able, knowing that you do so not just for the good of the congregation, but for the well-being of each of us who call this congregation our spiritual home. You can give this morning by texting 73256 with the message RRUUC plus the amount you wish to contribute. Thank you for your generosity.
Have you spent a lifetime looking to find a miracle or wonder that could change your mind? You ain't found no reason yet to believe, but maybe hope's got something yet left up her sleeve. Something beautiful, something natural, ordinary magic. Amazing that we have this chance to be here, to let our love vanish fear, and let our days overfill with ordinary magic. Have you felt the sunshine on your face? Have you heard the bird's version of Amazing Grace? Have you stood up on a mountain and tried to number the stars? Did you know that perfection is who you truly are? You're always magical, always beautiful, ordinary magic. It's amazing that we have this chance to be here, to let our love banish fear, to let our days overfill with ordinary magic. Like wind chimes, a child's song, the whisper of wind in the leaves, the moonlight, the wide open have this chance to be here, a chance to let our love disappear, fear, and let our days overfill with ordinary magic, ordinary magic.
Greta Thunberg, who needs no introduction, has said, "Our house is on fire." I am here to say, our house is on fire. Adults keep saying, we owe it to the young people to give them hope. But I don't want your hope. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear that I feel every day. And then I want you to act. I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if our house is on fire, because it is. Prem, Sophie, Robin, and Martin will share what they are doing to address our climate emergency.
I am moved to do the little things. So turn off the lights, don't raise the thermostat, put on a sweater instead. Recycle. As of now, my generation is barely breaking into the amount of political clout that older generations have. However, I believe that it is all of our jobs to make sure a kid still has a snow day every once in a while, or that a mighty saguaro can still stand tall and bear fruit. Yell, scream until our voices are heard so that those who have been sitting on their hands for so long can hear all the people saying, "We demand a future."
When I realized how disastrous climate change is, I wanted to act. Two of my friends and I organized a school-wide climate poster contest, a climate debate involving students, and weekly climate challenges. I also joined a student-led organization called MoCo on Climate, which this congregation has donated to. MoCo on Climate is dedicated to pushing 6 climate demands in the Montgomery County public school system. Each and every one of us, including me, needs to act and do more against climate change. Thank you.
Last year, I gave presentations and conducted workshops on Project Drawdown, which is a climate change research project where over 200 environmental experts identified and modeled the 100 most effective existing solutions to drying down the greenhouse gases from our atmosphere. Some of these solutions you'd expect, like solar panels, wind power, or planting trees. But some of the solutions you might not have thought of as climate change solutions, even though they make a big difference. One of the solutions I'm most excited about is reducing food waste. According to the Drawdown website, in the first world, 35% of the food bought by the consumer is wasted. If that food goes to landfill and rots, it produces methane, a greenhouse gas that's even more potent than carbon dioxide. According to the World Wildlife Fund, in the US alone, food waste produces the equivalent of 37 million cars worth of greenhouse gas emissions. So reducing food waste in your own home is an easy way to be a part of the climate change solution. Project Drawdown gives me hope because it gives us dozens of concrete, practical solutions that we can use as individuals, but also in our families and in our communities so that we can draw down the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
All right. So let's see. Hi. To begin with, we want to acknowledge the tremendous struggle going on today for social justice and for the health and well-being of our community as we struggle against the pandemic. We are living each of these struggles deeply every day and every moment. Now, acknowledging both of these struggles, as part of this service, Holly and I are here to talk about climate change and what we can do at home and in our communities to make a difference.
At our house, we focused on two of the largest impacts we make to climate change, the car that we drive and the electricity that we use. When it was time to replace one of our cars, we decided to buy a used plug-in electric hybrid. We're getting about 85 miles to the gallon, and we often don't remember where our gas tank is, so we feel like that was a really good choice for us. For our home energy use, we took advantage of Pepco's free home energy audit to identify ways that we could make our home more energy efficient. And we decided to install Energy Star certified appliances and windows throughout the house. And we also installed a smart thermostat. And we've also switched to running our home on renewable electricity. And for anybody who wants info on that, put your email in the chat box and we will be able to reach out to you after the discussion and the service today. But while we feel good about these steps we've taken to get greener, at our house, we recognize that a lot more action is needed and we want to help make a bigger difference. So we've wanted to find ways that we could think and we could act on a larger scale. So that's why I'm so happy that our congregation is committed to reducing our climate impacts and is working to identify energy efficiency steps that we can take in our building and exploring ways to shift to run on renewable energy. Talk about living our values. And we as a congregation can do more. As a group, UUs and other religious organizations can demand more action to reduce climate impacts in our community and in our country. We're so blessed to be part of a community where we celebrate and want to protect the earth that we live on.
And in the meantime, we'll continue to ride our bikes to work when we have to go into the office. And we look forward to our Sunday Zooming with all of you to help us stay connected and focused on the beauty and love all around us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I invite you to take a brief moment to think about what actions call to you. What will you do to help put out the fire that is burning our house?
In thinking about what you can do to help with the climate emergency, you may have thought that your individual efforts are only a drop in the bucket. However, individual actions have a much greater impact than we think. Consider peer pressure and single-use water bottles. There was a time when they didn't exist. Then they became ubiquitous. Now, many people no longer use them, preferring reusable water bottles instead. Or you may have had a sense of feeling alone or overwhelmed. What can I do that will make a difference? UU Minister Marilyn Sewell responds, when we act alone, it is true that we feel powerless. Our strength and courage, though, shine out when we join a group of others, all with the same values, working for the same cause.
The action button in the e-weekly and the link in the chat provide information on what we each can do individually and information about a wide variety of group efforts, including River Road's congregation-wide effort to renew our Green Sanctuary certification. In the breakout rooms, we invite you to discuss something in this service that was meaningful to you, or to share something that you are doing or plan to do to address the climate emergency.
During the recent COVID worldwide lockdown, there were unprecedented reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. A question before all of us is, how will we help maintain these gains over time? As we slowly move into our new normal, we each must decide how we will be part of climate emergency solutions. Whether your primary motivation is the environment or social justice, there is more than enough to do. As Jack Kornfield says, it is time to act, to be the medicine, the uplifting music, the lamp in the darkness, Together, we create the future.
In the spirit of working together, we invite you to join us in the benediction by reading aloud the words on your screen, adapted from the UN Environmental Sabbath Program. We join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air.
We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures.
We join with the earth and with each other to recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember the children. We join with the earth and with each other. May it be so.
Honeysuckle rose,
honeysuckle rose.
Everybody knows,
everybody knows
your face, and your fragrance is wonder,
fragrance is wonder.
Every time you're near,
every time you're near,
troubles disappear,
troubles disappear.
It's all well, in the spell, that I'm under, and everything is paradise, and I don't have to think twice. I already know. I already know. Huckleberry pie,
huckleberry pie.
How you catch my eye,
how you catch my eye.
With that magical grin,
grin.
You're inspiring,
you're inspiring.
It can't be a sin,
it can't be a sin.
How you draw me in,
how you draw me in,
with a wink, and a smile,
You're
my rewiring,
you're my rewiring,
and everything is paradise. I don't have to think twice. I already know. I already know. I already know. I already know. And every day it's so nice to wake up under clear blue skies and let all of my worries go, 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 'cause I've got honeysuckle rose.